Nice to have you, Amy. Professor Shepard, terrific. And of course, our speakers today, Dr. Shadanan, Anil, welcome.
Thank you.
Gavin.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste, assalamu alaikum, and good evening, good night, and good morning to all of you. We are pleased to have people at this meeting from all parts of the world in different time zones. I am Ashley Solanan, an independent researcher specializing in historical studies. I hold a bachelor's degree in history with a minor in literature from the University of the West Indies. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a weekly forum being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center, a legally registered research and publishing company operating since 2010. In order to continue this weekly program and to make it bigger and better, we are asking for suggestions and volunteers. If you give a donation, your name will be placed on our poster and all promotional materials. Please contact Dr. Mahabir for details. Let us remember today that Hindus are celebrating Phagwa or Holi, the spring festival of colors. Roman Catholics are also observing Lent for 40 days, and our Muslim brothers and sisters are observing Ramadan by fasting and reciting prayers. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our moderator today, who is Shalima Mohammed, the co-director of the Thought Leaders Forum, who is a business teacher and researcher from Trinidad and Tobago. She obtained her master's degree in business psychology from Franklin University in the USA. Shalima, welcome.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Nice to see you again. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Namaste. And a warm welcome to all of you. I want to say thank you, as usual, for choosing to be here with us. There are so many things we can do on a Sunday evening, but we've chosen instead to come to discuss something which is greatly important to all of us. And today, we continue with a topic that we started on October 19th, 2025, in which we queried, was Indian indentureship a crime against humanity? So this is part 2 of that discussion. And the reason why we have a part 2 is because on our program on February 15th, in which we discussed the significance of history to the descendants of the Gametias, this whole question arose again. And it probably will continue to do so because many descendants like us of Indian indentures, as well as activists and post-colonial scholars, call for recognition, apology, and reparation for Indian migration and indentureship based on the widespread and systematic abuse which our foreparents experienced. From an ethical standpoint, Indian indentureship can be viewed as a crime against humanity because there was systematic exploitation and dehumanization. But legally, we're not too sure if it falls into a gray area. Under international law, crimes against humanity is defined as acts committed as part of a widespread or systematic attack directed against any civilian population with knowledge of the attack. These attacks include enslavement, deportation, imprisonment, torture, rape, persecution, and other inhumane acts causing great suffering. Well, we heard from Anil Pahlad Singh on our program on October 19th from a legal point of view, and we will hear from him again today. But on our last program in February, Dr. Moritz Hassan Khan, a historian from Suriname, raised an argument, a strong argument against this. And I'm going to ask Navin to just play back that clip for us, please. Navin?
Yeah, he knows.
Navin?
Yeah, I think he's
Trying to share.
yeah, he's working
Can
on
we
it.
get that clip with Professor Moritz Hassan Khan?
Go to the last minutes.
Yeah, he has it, and it should be coming up soon.
And the reason why we just want to bring it back is so that we don't misquote anything that he was saying, because at that point in time, the conversation, or rather his comment, should have been responded to by Professor Shardnan Harinandan Singh, who you will hear from in a few minutes. Actually, while we wait for Navin to bring that clip up, let me just remind you that Professor Shardnan Harinandan Singh was born in the Netherlands, was born in Suriname and had migrated to the Netherlands. He's a professor at the European Institute of Management and Technology, Zurich. He founded grammateology, which is an academic discipline focused on the grammateers, or for those who are not aware, the Indian indentured laborers and their descendants. So we'll hear from him in a second or two.
Yeah, Navin?
Navin?
For some reason, and that clip doesn't want to hear my entire screen, and we'll.
Is it the audio?
No, it's
Can you
not showing
play-
up on the list to share. So let me share my entire screen, and I'll display it.
Yeah, and right, I think that's it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wait.
Professor Hassan Khan?
Yeah, I just want to make a remark on what Dr. Adinandan Singh said about indentured labor as a crime against humanity. I think we have to make a definition. Where is the border that something is a crime against humanity? We have exploitation now at this moment in the world. And for instance, India has the largest number of what they call modern slavery. Then you would say that India is doing crime against humanity. What I want to say that in the initial period, indentured labor, there was much more exploitation than in a later period. For instance, in Guyana, about the end of 1860s, there has been a lot of problems. Then a new act and new rules came. And from that moment on, it was not so exploitation as before. And also in Suriname. And as I said, at the end of indentured labor, when indentured labor migration was prohibited, that the Indians from Suriname sent a delegation to India to ask the nationalist leader to give permission to collaborate that in other form migration could take place, because it would be in the benefit of the Indians in the country. And then later on to Guyana and to Mauritius, there was what they called assisted migration. So what I want to say, in the 21st century, we have also a lot of exploitation. All forms of exploitations are how you say, it's crime against humanity. Then we have to go to the United Nations, and all the countries should be convicted for this.
Right. So I think we need to revisit. Okay, so there you heard it. And indeed, today we are revisiting because it indeed is a compelling question. And I've already introduced Professor Dr. Shadnan Harinandan Singh. Let's hear from you, sir.
Thank you very much, Salima ma'am, Dr. Kumar Mahabir and your full team. I'm very thankful that you give us the second chance to present this issue in the context of our gerontology operations, because we have four priorities. One of them is to ask for reparations, and you cannot do because the difference between the indentured labor and the slavery descendants is that the slavery was for years already recognized and declared as crime against humanity. Well, that is not the case for the indentured labor. So what we are doing now is to find legal arguments, legal evidence, and that is why we ask our lawyer, also he's a judge, but as lawyer and our legal advisor, to look after this problem and how can we find the modus to have go to the judge and ask him what is his judgment. Is it well or is it not? And thereafter, we can go to the United Nations, not before, but that is a case for Dr. Anil. I want to thank you for this slide, Salima. Your introduction was marvelous. Also, you starting with 301st with your promo, etc., is very pleasant. So my compliment. You see, a legal appeal for recognition of crimes against the humanity labors. What is the basic? Maybe you can go back. I will. You must go to the first slide, please. Yes. You see, then you have a legal. This will be our fundament to fight for this, but that is what the next speaker will be. You see, crime against the humanity never died. It stays. And you see that I have published this question. Next one. Next, yes. May 22, when Prime Minister Modi was on visit in Paris. So I put a essay and ask him, okay, you are in Europe, talk about this question. So at May 22, I was already focusing on the point where we are today. And thereafter, we had a conference in the Lucknow University, a 3-day conference on the subject of past, present, and the future of the indentured labor descendants. And at the ending, I had presented a resolution, and in the resolution was, take the steps to go to the judge, etc., because we want a legal judgment is slavery to be recognized as crime against humanity or not. So at June, I have presented a legal document to our legal advisor, the advocate is Rachana Tiwari. And I have that document. It is not enough to go to the judge, she said, that we are going to talk later about this. On 20 July, I have put this petition circulation to get signature just to collect supporting to do more with this petition, but only 80% Paya, only 80% signs. Okay, I stop there. After that, we have had, just like today, also a conference where Dr. Anil and Dr. Onkar and two more persons and me, we have explored this subject. Next one. Please, next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, Salima, can you read this for me?
Yes, no problem, Baba. If acts committed between 1833 and 1920 within the system of Indian indenture were to be legally characterized under contemporary international criminal law standards as constituting crimes against humanity, such acts would fall within the category of imprescriptible crimes as articulated in Article 1.
Okay, that is very clear. Next one. Okay, please read this for me too.
Sure. So the formal legal qualification as crimes against humanity under international law is necessary. The decisive judicial threshold is therefore not the historical period in which the acts occurred, but whether the conduct satisfies the internationally recognized legal elements of crimes against humanity. In conclusion, the assertion regarding the non-applicability of limitations to colonial-era acts against Indian indentured laborers is contingent upon their formal legal qualification as crimes against humanity under international law.
Okay, next one. Okay, I can close after this. What is now the question? Why we should not fight for our right? Person like Dr. Hassan Khan, and I think the same in the same line is the other scholar, Chanchuni professor. He said, why it is crime? I said, let us try. People has been served. The humanity, all of things we have to bring together, put this in the hand of a lawyer and go to the judge. Please ask, is this crime against the humanity, what we are presenting, or not? That was my last word. Good luck.
Very good. Thank you so much, Baba.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me. And at this point in time, we need to hear from Dr. Anil Pahlaad Singh. He's from the Netherlands, and interestingly, he is the commissioner at the Dutch Human Rights Committee and deputy judge at a court in Rotterdam. In this program, we are hoping to hear from him about the legal classification of indentured labor as a crime against humanity. Welcome again, Dr. Anil.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. And I think I will repeat a little bit what I said the first time, but I will also explore a little bit more about the question which is central today or tonight, wherever everybody is now attending this meeting, whether or not it's a crime against humanity. So if we have the PowerPoint, we can start that. Yes, thanks. Yeah, so the presentation is about the legal framework. So I think it's first important to see how international law has developed in the area of, I would say, slavery and other forms of labor which are not allowed according to international law. And we have to keep in mind that indentured labor somewhere started, of course, in the after the abolition of slavery, so in the 1830s, going on till at least 1917. So that's the period of indentured labor we have seen from people from British India who were sent, of course, to different parts in the world, African countries, Caribbean countries, South America. So that's, I think, the first point. So in that perspective, it's important to see that the first international treaty we have internationally was a first treaty in 1890, in which colonial powers concluded that slavery was classified as a crime against humanity. So that's 1890. The second step we see is that in 1920, we see the International Convention Against Slavery, which prohibited all forms of slavery. In 1926, the Anti-Slavery Convention. And then I think the most important point in time, if we're talking about indentured labor, would be, I think, the ILO Convention 29, which formally is known as the Forced Labor Convention, which is an international labor organization treaty that aims to suppress and eliminate forced labor in all its forms. So it's not only slavery which is abolished internationally according to this convention, which nowadays is signed by almost all the member states in the world, but it's also prohibiting forms of labor, just like forced labor or other forms of labor, which I will explore a little bit later on. So we can move up to the next slide. So why is it important to assess the current international law? Well, international labor law and human rights instruments that are now applicable had not yet been established in the time of indentured labor, contract labor. So that's, I think, an important step to highlight at this moment. In the discussion about the history of slavery, it's only natural to start from the social and legal norms that apply today. So if you would ask anyone, is slavery, right or wrong, I think most of the people will now recognize that it was wrong. Although at that time in the past, decades before, slavery was, according to the former laws in the colonial power states, of course, legal, and it was, correct. So current international human rights and labor standards are not unrelated to the colonial and slavery past. So the ILO Forced Labor Convention was considered a codification of existing international customary law, which therefore also applied at the time of indentured labor. So it was signed in 1930, but it was already custom in most of the colonial powers at that time. So it was already existing for several decades. So I would say the end of the indentured labor time of Indian migrants were falling within that scope of the convention. So we can move on to the next slide. So if you look at ILO Convention number 29, there are 3 forms of labor which are prohibited internationally. The first form, and that's, I think, the most severe, that's slavery. The second one is servitude. And the third one is forced or compulsory labor. So the question is, in which category can we qualify indentured labor of Indian migrants? And if they don't fall within one of these 3 categories, then the conclusion will be that it was free labor and it was not a prohibited form of labor, which is, according to international law, not allowed. So these prohibitions are absolute. So these 3 types of forms of labor are not allowed, and with very limited exceptions for work during detention, military, substitute civilian service, emergency service, or work that constitutes normal civic obligations. So I think in the question of Mr. Hassan Khan, it also came up. Nowadays, in modern time, we also see labor exploitation, and we see also types of slavery or maybe forced law. Yes, according to current law, that's prohibited. So that means forms of human trafficking, those forms of labor also fall within these forms of labor which are not which is not allowed. If we just look back to the discussions we had when we had the World Cup football in Qatar, we also saw, of course, the discussion with international organizations who were claiming that a lot of workers from Asian countries were working there as forced laborers. And that's a form of labor which is not allowed. We can continue. So if we have a look at indentured labor, according to my view, it cannot be qualified as slavery because Indian workers were not the property of the plantation owners. They had an employment contract, which concluded, if we look at the example of Suriname, that they worked for 5 years. And after the 5 years of working, the worker had the possibility to return to British India or to extend his or her contract to work in the colony. So therefore, indentured labor cannot be qualified as the first form of labor which is not allowed, slavery. The second form of labor which is prohibited, that's servitude. And in my view, the situation of the contract workers cannot be qualified as servitude because it was not a permanent duration of labor they were exercising at that moment. It was not as it's qualified in the convention, permanently hopeless situation. The decisive factor here is that the Indian migrants, they had an employment contract which concluded a specific period to work, mostly 5 years, and after this period, they had the option or to return to the country of origin or to extend their contract. So therefore, it was not a permanent situation in which they were finding themselves. So therefore, it's not a form of labor which can be qualified as the second form, servitude. We can continue to the next slide. Then we will come to the third form of labor, which is not allowed according to international law. And there are 3 elements to assess whether or not Indian indentured labor can be qualified as forced or compulsory labor. The first element is there must be labor or service. The second element is there must be a threat of punishment to compel someone to work. And the third element is that there must be involuntariness in the performance of labor. The latter does not apply if an employer or intermediary makes false promises, causing an employee to accept a job that would not otherwise have accepted. There are some exceptions to the prohibition of forced labor, and that's military service, normal civic duties, work in detention and work in emergency situations, and minor social tasks. These 5 exemptions are not applicable on the situation of indentured laborers from British India. So we can continue to the next slide. So why Indian indentured labor should be qualified as forced labor? I think it's important to see that the Indian immigrants were actually exercising labor, so that is the first element. And then looking at the circumstances under which they were working. For example, they were working long hours on the plantation, 7 hours in the field, 10 hours in the factory, if we look at the situation in Suriname, for low wages. The living conditions were also extremely poor. Underpayment and exploitation was something which was, something which in general was seen. There was a high mortality rate among contract laborers. As high as 50% of the population died in some plantations. And an important element to decide that it was qualified, that it can be qualified as forced labor, is the element that there was a threat of criminal enforcement of the obligations under the labor contract, like a penal sanctions. If I would like to quit my contract, I would get a penal sanction, and that's a form of forced labor. If you have a normal contract, you should have the the option to leave your contract, and that's something which is not seen. Secondly, there was a disproportionality burden for individuals considering to work to be performed, which resulted also in acute physical, mental coercion under threat of physical and serious violence. So taking all these facts together, which is also an assessment which is done by the European Court on Human Rights in these type of questions and cases, is that looking at all these factors, taking these three elements together, the conclusion should be that the labor of the indentured labor should be qualified as forced labor, which is prohibited under current international law under the ILO Convention 1930. We can continue. So the conclusion would be, from my perspective, is that indentured labor of Indian migrants should be qualified as forced labor, which is a violation of the ILO Convention number 29, which is the Convention of 1930. And it's also a violation of Article 4 of the European Convention on Human Rights. And that's the, I would say, main human rights documents we have in Europe. And that convention was signed in 1950. And in the European Union, we have a new Charter of Fundamental Rights, which was applicable since 1 December 2009. And it means also a violation of Article 5 of the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights. We can continue then to the next step, because the question was then, okay, if it's forced labor in the past, is it then a crime against humanity? And to explore that, I think an important treaty in that perspective globally is the Statute of Rome, which was signed on 1 July 2002. And of course, we have the International Criminal Court, who is giving us legally binding judgments on these type of cases. But there's an important article, and that's Article 11. That's the jurisdiction ratio temporis, which means what's the entry date in which you could, bring cases under the Statute of Rome to see whether or not it could qualify as a crime against humanity. So important is that the court has jurisdiction only with respect to crimes committed after the entry into force of the statute. So that means crimes committed after 1 July 2002. We can continue. So is forced labor crime against humanity? Well, as I already said, Article 7 gives you a list of crimes against humanity. One of these crimes, which is qualified under A, is enslavement. Well, I already concluded that Indian indentured labor cannot be qualified as enslavement, so therefore it will not fall under the category of A. But it could fall under the category K, and that means that it could be seen as other form of inhuman acts of a similar character intentionally causing great suffering or serious injury to body or to mental or physical health. So forced law, according to the doctrine, the legal doctrine, can be placed, will fall within the scope of Article 7K of the ICC statute. Then we can continue. So the conclusion is it could fall under the context of Article 7.1 under K of the ICC, but we have to see also the context, and that is that these acts must be part of a widespread or systematic attack directed against any civilian population to qualify it as a crime against humanity. And that's a step which I think is not explored yet. If we look at the past and the several states in which Indian indentured laborers were working. So I think that's something to explore. So that's not something in which I can say a hard yes or a no. I think that's a gray area which has to be researched more in the future. And then we can continue. But is the Statute of Rome applicable? My answer is no, because the court has jurisdiction only with respect to crimes committed after the entry force of this statute. So that means the Statute of Rome is not applicable on the situation of Indian indentured laborers. So if you're talking about the situation according to Dutch law, one could maybe say, hey, I could make a claim and I will go to the civil judge. I don't think that it's also a legal path to follow, because you have to be, although you have to prove then that you were yourself were a victim of forced labor. And well, we are all descendants of the Indian indentured laborers. So I don't think anyone now who's living right now in itself was an Indian indentured laborer. So we call that the causality test. That's difficult to prove. And that's the same problem for people who want to claim damage costs under civil law in the Dutch system for slavery. That's also impossible, because these are also people who are descendants of enslaved people, but they were not themselves slaves. So the national way to claim damage costs or anything according to Dutch law will also not be possible. So I think we can continue to my last slides. There's, of course, maybe a parallel or a connection to be made with the CARICOM reparation plan on slavery, which was published in 2013, which seeks reparatory justice from former European colonial powers for the enduring harms of slavery, genocide, and native colonization. So their 10-point plan includes formal apologies, repatriation, debt cancellation, and funding for health, education, and cultural institutions. Can continue to the next slide. So I think, to conclude, it could be an interesting point also for the future to see how the CARICOM 10-point plan is continuing. And I think it's also good to get the legal qualification more clear. And although I don't think that the legal path is a possibility right now, more research should be done. And I think it's important also to get some recognition. That will be, I think, helpful also going on to the future, and that also people will understand in the current societies where Indians are playing a role in those societies, where they came from, what their past was, and what their contribution is nowadays in the different societies where they're living and giving a big contribution. And I think in time, apologies would also be something very good. And I think it's also important to get this information also in school books, education, in which all the citizens of these countries are aware about the history and are aware, of course, about this part, which is, I think, not familiar if I'm looking just to the Dutch situation nowadays. Most of the Dutch people, they do know that they're Indians coming from Suriname, which was a former colony, but the past and how they were working, that's not something which in a broad perspective is well known. So I think educationally, also with more research, I think these are focus points, I think, for the communities to take on for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pahaladze. Dr. Shadanand, you had your hand up. You wanted to say something? You're muted. You're muted. You need to unmute.
Can
Yes.
hear me now? Thank
Yes.
you, Dr. Anil. That is very clear. This is more than the last time. And you know the point, Article 7 point K, that will be our focus to look what we can do there. The slavery is many, many years ago, and still now they are not the victims. The victims were the slavery. They are descendants. But what are their arguments now? The impact is going year by year, intergenerations, and they have problems. What kind of problem? One of the problem is loss of sense. You want to connect with your ancestral village. That is not possible because the archives are not right. Excuses, we can claim excuses, but better, it is okay. We can claim excuses, pardon, etc., but the rehabilitation, what can we do? And really, that is the point what you have talked also when you was last year in Delhi. You met your colleague, Rachana Shukla, and she advised me you have to do more research. That is the same thing what you are telling. That is one. And the second thing what she tells, we have to go to our own parliament in the nations and bring this so that the nation, the president and a high level can bring this on, I don't know, United Nations level, but something has to be done. The fight is not lost. We are going to do this. That is what I wanted to additive tell you. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. At this point in time, we do have a third speaker, and I would like to hear from him, but I'm also very pleased that we have Professor Breen Shepherd in the audience with us, and she is quite instrumental in that CARICOM 10-point plan, so I hope to hear from her soon. So let me introduce you all to Dr. Arnold Thomas of St. Vincent. He's the author of the monograph titled The Argyll Chronicles From Home to East Indians. He's also a member of the Indian Diaspora Council and the Global Grammateer Society. Welcome, Dr. Thomas. Let's hear what you want to bring to this particular conversation. Is he still? Yes, he's here.
Yeah.
Dr. Thomas, can you unmute, please?
Can you hear me now?
Dr.
Yeah.
Thomas?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Okay, are you going to put up that?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, let me commend our first speaker for that excellent presentation. And for me, what it does, it destroys, on the one hand, while it sets forth the framework for commenting and analyzing what our topic is all about, whether it's indentureship is a crime against humanity. While he does that, on the other hand, he introduced a time frame, and it makes it very, very difficult to look at, to analyze our history, and then put it back into the framework, the legal framework that was just described, and say, let's move forward with that one. I hope you understand what I'm saying. On the one hand, it gives us a good background, but on the other hand, it tells us, no, we can't do anything because this thing only came into effect in 2002. All right, but having said that, let me just say I would like to use St. Vincent as indentureship in St. Vincent and the Grenadines as a case study as to whether indentureship can be considered as a crime against humanity. Now, I have to be very brief for this one. In the case of St. Vincent, we have had a history of both genocide and slavery. And genocide means before the Europeans came here, took over the place, it was settled by indigenous people that came, so we're told, from South America. And they fought off conquest for literally hundreds of years. And it was not until the 18th, 17th, 16th, 17th century when the Europeans came here and they wanted to get rid of these indigenous people and get the lands in order to set up sugar plantations. So then after genocide, and we know the story of genocide, incidentally, I am involved in a team that's writing the history of St. Vincent. We have already done volume 1, and volume 1 documents what I've just said. All that's been happening for over 300 years until 1797. So that's coming up. So when slavery was introduced into St. Vincent, and we had the shortest history of slavery, just from about 1797 until 1838. And when slavery was abolished, we know after slavery was abolished, the colonialists, the colonial rulers, make sure they had in place several organizations or policies to ensure that the new people who would come after the Africans would also be subject to them and be considered inferior. So we had things like apprenticeship that continued until about 1838, some places further. And then when things got very scarce, when labor got very scarce because the former slaves would not work, they needed more labor. So what did they do? They got people from overseas. And in the case of St. Vincent, the first lot to come here as indentured workers were from the island of Madeira. The Portuguese, they came here from about 1845 until 1860. And then things got worse when the Portuguese, as we call them, finished their indentureship. They needed more people because the Portuguese went off and did their own thing, set up shops and so on. And at the time, Indian indentureship was well underway in other countries, so St. Vincent wanted to share. And it was not until 1860 that St. Vincent got its first share of indentured workers. When they got here, and we know the conditions under which they came here, a lot of them were fooled. They were told that they were going to come here to earn plenty of money and get back to India, rich people. Some of them, they didn't even know where St. Vincent was. They thought St. Vincent was some little village in maybe Trinidad or Guyana. Then, so by the time they got to St. Vincent, things were different. And they were put on estates. And what happened there is what we would call a real crime against humanity, because in the case of St. Vincent, the Indians were not allowed to leave the estates unless they had a pass. And if you were found for more than 2 miles away from the estate, they were given the crime. They were treated with the crime of vagrancy. And the crime of vagrancy means that when you get back there, you are subject to hard work, hard labor. And in the case of St. Vincent, they were also subject to what was then in operation, the treadmill. So that was the situation about the Indians in St. Vincent. In all, we had just about 2,472, something like that, over a period from 1860 to 1880 when the last ship came. And in that period, we have had some real bad experiences. I mentioned the Indians were tied to the estate, and I don't know in other countries what they were called, but in St. Vincent, they were called bound coolies. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that term. They were called bound coolies because they could not leave the estate, and they were there to work under conditions. The wages that they were promised when they left India, they never got. Even 10 pence or shilling a day, they got less than that, sometimes only half of that. And the conditions under which they work, they had to work from sunrise to sunset. So things were very, very bad. Another condition was those who passed out of indentureship and were still living on the estates, when they got sick, they were not looked after. So they had to look after themselves, and many of them died from sores and other diseases that they did not bring from India. And that was the condition. So we also have cases, documented cases of women who were treated as slaves. There's one case I documented in my study where another Indian tried to flirt with this Indian lady and she refused. And he took a case to the overseer saying that this woman was blah, 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 blah. And you know what they did? They got this woman, stripped her, and gave her quite a few lashes because they blamed the woman and said the woman had done something to this guy, when in fact it was the guy who was trying to do something to the woman. So what I'm saying is that that was a sexual crime, and it was overlooked. The other thing I want to mention is not every year was a good year for indentured workers, or was it a good year for the planters? In the 1880s, things went very bad in terms of the price of sugar. A lot of people didn't find work, and the mistreatment continued. And the Indians on one particular estate decided they had enough. So on the 7th of October, about 50 of them downed cutlass and hoe and marched off from the estate to about 9 miles away, the capital, Kingstown, to bring their grievances to the governor. While they were on the way, the overseer of the estate met them and said, "You did not get a pass to leave the estate, and you better go back." Well, the leader of this gang of the protest decided he's not going back. So what he did, he carried on to Kingstown. When he got there, the ringleaders were arrested. What was the cause? What was the case against them? Vagrancy. Vagrancy means that they had left the estate without permission. And well, today we would call it a crime against humanity because they were bound, and because they felt they should not be bound, they left. Anyway, 8 of the ringleaders were arrested, and that was the beginning of the end of indentureship in St. Vincent. It so happened by 1890, St. Vincent became the first country with indentured Indians to end indentureship. Indians in St. Vincent never considered themselves to be slaves, and I totally agree with what the previous speaker said. Indians were not considered to be slaves, and they didn't want to be called slaves, but the conditions under which they worked were not different from slavery. They were bound to their estates, they worked long hours, they were treated under all rotten conditions, their living conditions, working conditions. So all of that we have to take into consideration. But today, we have to look at them with a different perspective. Indians who came from India, some of them were glad they left because things were so bad because of famines over there. So they came for the good life. In the case of St. Vincent, more than half that came to St. Vincent went back to India, and they were sent back. They were sent back because of the conditions on the working. They didn't want to work anymore. So the colonial office decided they're going to put them on board ships and send them back. So of the 2,470 odd that came, 1,141 went back to India. And so we were left with a very small Indian population. And if we put it all together, I would say, yes, there are good reasons for them to leave India, but the conditions on the work in Bali Islands and Vincent were no different from what the States worked. And with that, I think I'm going to end my little presentation. Thank you.
Much appreciated. You know, I've heard about the history of St. Vincent on more than one occasions, and you having revisited it brought a few new facts to me, and I really appreciate you having done that in the context of this conversation. But I think what's important here is what our audience members would like to say, and I see Ken Solane already has his hand up. So can I also invite other members of the audience, please, if you would like to raise a comment or you would like to ask a question, please go ahead, raise your electronic hands, which you will find in the reactions button at the base of your screen. Ken, go ahead, please.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. There is the United Nations and International Crime Court, and I read earlier that there is no statute of limitations on crime against humanity. So even though we could establish that crimes were committed back in the 1870s, there is no statute of limitations to say time runs out. There are, if you go to the website of the International Crime Court, you can file a complaint. And with that, you would have to establish, like with any crime, who committed the crime, when, where, and the particulars. So you would probably need a group among this group to, let's say, tie together that pertinent information and file a complaint. And certainly groups like Amnesty International might be able to help on a pro bono basis, or if you can get lawyers together to file a case at the International Crime Court. So, you know, just something. I'm not, obviously not someone who has expertise in legal matters, but, you know, you would probably have to pull in some people who would have to have that expertise.
Well, thank you very much. We've had our legal expert here to discuss that. Let's hear his response to you, Dr. Anil.
Well, I think I already concluded that we need much more information about, you know, the actual situation. And the question is also, when you will go to the, you know, to the international court, which state is responsible, which, you know, that's also an interesting question. And to sort out these things, I think much more is needed, and also the systematic way, because there is a difference, for example, between the state who was, you know, giving the possibilities to realize the indentured labor, but it was, you know, it was more or less also the plantation owner who was doing wrongful things. So the question is, who is then responsible? Is that the plantation owner? Is that the state? Can you, you know, get that legally, you know, in a framework that the responsibilities of the plantation owner can be also addressed to the state at that moment, which was in power. So I think much more information is needed, you know, to give that some substance. So at this moment, and I also believe that, for example, if it was so easy, we would already have seen international organizations or states with victims of, you know, the slavery of, you know, the descendants who had already followed that path, and they did not, or they haven't done that yet. So that means already it's quite difficult to get that in a legal way, you know, fixed.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear from Professor Vereen Shepherd, who can give us some information and some updates, perhaps, on the situation in regard to reparations. Professor Shepherd, welcome. You're unmuted, but we're not hearing you. Professor Shepherd?
We are not hearing her. She's unmuted.
Mhm.
Something is probably wrong at her end.
Professor Shepherd, can you hear us?
We're not hearing her.
Okay, while we wait for her response. Okay, she's muted again. Try unmuting again, one more time. Here. Hello? No, we're not
She's
hearing you.
Something is
She's
wrong, yeah.
unmuted, but we're not here now.
Pardon me? Navin?
She's unmuted, but we're still not here now.
Yeah. So something is wrong with her mic. Probably.
We need to get that straightened out because we absolutely need to hear from her today.
Oh, I think she's
All right,
rejoining.
so she's probably going to try to rejoin.
Yeah.
Kumu Gupta, what would you like to say?
Yeah, so, the UN has already recognized it a while ago that slavery and indentured labor were crimes against humanity. So, in this, all of this discussion, are you trying to is one of the goals to get repatriation for, the people who went through this, or because after they recognized it, they have also all the different countries like France and different countries who had this type of thing in the past have woven it into their labor laws today. And it is like any other thing, like, for example, violence against women. Yes, it is against, it's a crime and everything. And it is part of global, the country's laws and everything, but nevertheless, people still commit it, right? So what would you say is the main or the top one or two goals that you want to achieve, besides, going to the depth? And it's a very good thing to know your past and everything, but what else are you trying to accomplish?
Well, what we're trying to accomplish, if I may speak, is recognition, apology, and reparation. Those three basic points.
Thank you.
Yeah. But while we are speaking, I am Googling here to see if the United Nations has recognized indentureship as a crime against humanity.
Exactly.
And it says here, I have my Google up. United Nations has not explicitly recognized indentureship as a crime against humanity. However, there's a growing momentum for a treaty addressing crimes against humanity, which could potentially include indentureship. So it has not.
So it is not a fact.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Lenroy Thomas, go ahead, please. Lenroy, can you unmute your mic?
Yes, hold on. Let me unmute him. Yeah, you have to unmute. Go ahead.
All right. Are you hearing me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a very interesting topic. I think someone touched on the question before. So who is going to bring the case to whatever entity, if it's international court or whatever, or the United Nations? So we need to establish that. There are cases, we are not, as in the case of slavery, where they're looking for reparations and the government are representing them. In the Caribbean, for example, we have to determine who is going to bring this case. I think Ms. Sataran referred to the point before.
Dr. Shadanan, you mean?
For example, right? I have a problem as a descendant of indentured workers. I have a grievance currently. My great grandfather here my great-great-grandmother, all of my ancestors came to the Caribbean. And I have a grievance right now. The records are not there. The roots, and for some others, they may have written on the in the records fully rather than the name. You know, whose responsibility is this? This was condoned and this was authorized by British government, right? So the case shouldn't be to the British government. For us in St. Vincent, because we were a colony of them, and they authorized the whole system. All right, so I think a case could be made. For example, I as an individual, to seek that right, to have the British compensate or put into place the necessary financial resources, whatever it takes, to make those records available. Because for an individual to find their records, the historical records, you know, it's expensive. You have to go and research.
I found this on the web.
You know, it's a lot of money involved there. That is involved there. I think that is one way to go also. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. Dr. Sharanand, you wanted to say
Yes,
something.
exactly. For the research, it's a lot of money, sure. But that is why we want to claim money to do this kinds of research. If you ask someone to write a paper for a symposium, what are you going to pay me? Do you understand? Voluntary work, it is on behalf of your ancestors and on behalf of your descendants coming. So if we want to go, and I think in the Netherlands we have this experience too, if we want to claim some money just to do the research, then they will ask, okay, look what you can find money from the crime against the slavery. And when you go to the slavery brothers, oh, no, that is not yours. You are indentured labor. You had been paid. Oh my God. What I am telling now is to listen. Social science has been bring together a lot of evidence. What we have to make to find is to find a legal framework to make this so that we can get a judgment of one of other court. But to do that, as you say, as Anil said, and as my lawyer in India said too, we have to do a research-based focus on the legal things. And our ancestors are not living. Who are now the problems? Who are the problems? That is we, you, descendants. And what are our problems? As I told you, loss of feelings is going on intergeneration, and it is one of the argument for our slavery brothers. They said, yes, it is going in our mind. But do you think it is not going in my mind? My grandfather died on the sugar cane. Today I am feeling that. But when I want to do something, I want to research very concretely. Very concretely. If you are going to go after your lineage, sir, you will be not successful. Why? The archives concerning vital information about the immigration and immigration, the British Raj has took them away to London. And where are these archives? Not there. It is not in India. I think that when I bring this to a lawyer, I am now the prone. I cannot do what I have to do in the lineage of finding my ancestral village. Help me to find. I want to do research. Send 2 or 3 professors sent to London and find out. But who is going to pay this? Who is going to pay this? You understand? And a lot of cases we know here in the Netherlands, a group is going to the king asking pardon. Oh, no, 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 no. You are not just like the slavery. That is I'm doing. And the two things we have to do, a very constructive international research focus on this case, and second, to gain political support from our own government in Guyana and Suriname, etc., etc. These two things we do to work on this. And maybe it will be take 2 times or 3 years more. So what? Do you understand my position now? Sir, I am 82 years, but I have children and grandchildren. You too. And for them, I want the reparation, rehabilitation. They are calling coolie, go to your country. Go to your country. Well, what is my country? My country is Holland. Your country is Guyana. Where I'm going to go? Okay, sorry, excuse me. This is my motivation to do this job. And sir, we have, Salima, excuse me, I think if it is possible, within this audience, and not so much persons here, I think 30, 39, at least 5 or 7, make a group, a task group, and work on it. What you are telling, what Anil is telling, what the other, oh my God, bring it together, make a framework, and go then to the lawyer. And as Dr. Gupta said, there is no recognition by United Nations. No, if it was there, then we didn't have problem. First step is that legal document. And you know, we have to do something. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Baba. And let's hear now from Professor Vereen Shepherd. Can you please try to unmute?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Thankfully, yes, we're hearing you. Welcome.
All right, so I switched my instrument. I've gone on the laptop now. The desktop apparently is not working so well. So thank you very much.
Would you like to switch on your video?
Not right now. Sorry.
Okay.
Lots going on here where I am now.
I understand.
But thank you for this discussion. I think it's a very important discussion. And thank you to all the presenters. Before I give a perspective, I just wanted to correct something that I heard earlier on, that the rationale for Indian indentureship was because the freed Africans would not work. That's not true. What was happening is that and freed Africans a lot of them were quite willing to work, but not for the wages being offered. So because they were not being compensated for the labor, some opted to go elsewhere. And that is something that we should remember, because we don't want to pit one group against the other. What the Europeans were trying was a divide and rule tactic. So, okay, Africans, you don't want to work for this. We will get people who will work for this. So it was a divide and rule tactic by Europeans, and let us remember that. So in terms of the discussion now, I don't think we should create a hierarchy of oppression, because if we look at the characteristics of Indian indentureship, and we look at modern international human rights law, I think it contravenes modern human rights international law. And we should frame it also within that context. Now, even with the issue of declaring chattel enslavement a crime against humanity, there are difficulties, because people are using European international law, the Rome Statute and so on, to judge the eligibility. But for when we look at African jurisprudence, we see that it was a crime against humanity. So perhaps one of the things you can do is look for the earlier jurisprudence and not just European international law, which will not cover our oppression, you know? So I wanted to say that. But we have to also look at the continuing harm. It's not just something that was a crime when it was happening. There is continuing harm. And I heard one of our guests on this chat saying, you know, if you look at the racial hierarchy of the modern world, we see that there is discrimination against Indian people, so and African people. So we have to really look at that as well. So, but look at the characteristics: systematic coercion and deception, slave-like conditions, exploitation and abuse, penal sanctions, high mortality and inhumane transport, structural racism and disability, the sexploitation among women, you know? So I think we have to look at the way in which it was characterized by systematic deception and coerced labor and the brutal exploitation of over 1.6 million Indian people transported to European colonies. So I think even if chattel enslavement has been of the laws which define chattel enslavement as a crime against humanity and cannot seamlessly apply to Indian indentured laborers, I think we have to also include modern international law. It contravenes modern international law in terms of CARICOM and the 10-point plan and the push to get African enslavement and its enduring legacies as crimes against humanity. There is a pushback as well. There is a pushback. But using African jurisprudence, locating the claim, and we're going to, I think it's going to appear at the UN as well this year, to declare it a crime against humanity and to seek reparations. If you look at the challenge, there are challenges of that as well, because there are those who want to just locate the claim within modern international law. But if we use African jurisprudence, it is quite clear that in the 14th century, you know, early 15th century, there were people arguing that it contravened humanitarian law. So I think the CARICOM 10-point plan sets out, yes, the crime against African people, but there are challenges there as well. But that should not stop any of us from using modern international law and using the characteristics of the indentureship contract to press the case at the UN. There is the International Convention on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And I think that should be explored as one of the options to anchor the case with the Indians of the Caribbean. So I would not be negative about it. I saw the presentation. I saw that under modern international law, there are characteristics of a crime against humanity which might not fit seamlessly, but I think we should explore deeper to see and test the case, make the claim, and let's see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Can I get a response from Dr. Anil Pahalat Singh, please?
Yes, I think it's interesting also to look at African jurisprudence and case law, although we already have in Europe also a lot of case law from the modern time in which, you know, which is, I think, usable in this context and discussion. So yeah, I think let's explore more, do more research and find out and try. I think that's a good advice.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Om Prakash, your hand is up. Om Prakash?
1 minute.
Yes.
Just, setting up my video. 1 minute. Okay. Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Captain Om Prakash. I am based in London. I am the first generation of immigrant coming to London. I actually came from a place called Chhapra in Bihar, from where lots of Bhojpuri speaking descendants migrated to Mauritius, Fiji, even Guyana, Trinidad, Tobago, Suriname, and other small islands. I've recently been to 2 islands, Trinidad and Tobago, and also in Guyana. I spoke to Dr. Kumar Mahabir. I didn't get an opportunity to meet him face to face, although I met lots of people in Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana who got an interest and something to work on this indentured labor. My association to this topic is there are two things. One is I am ex-merchant Navy captain, so I can feel the pain of the journey our ancestrals have carried out from India to all those different places. And also because I'm from Chhapra, where it's a Bhojpuri speaking, and the people, lots of people from that area, including from it's Bhojpuri speaking to today's Awadh, which is in UP, that area. So these are the two things which was my interest to get into this topic. I'm pleased to announce or to tell you people that I am working with 4 Indian universities, where BHU, Banaras Hindu University, Kasi Vidyapeeth, which is also in Banaras, Central University, which is in Telangana, and another Central University in Magad, which is in Bodh Gaya. These 4 universities, along with myself, there are 6 directors. We are working on this topic, whereby we have involved Government of India, ICSSR. Just now we were talking about funding, and Sadanandji was talking about the money and the research and how we can take it technical and bring it legal. There are lots of people in India are now getting into this topic, putting some interest, since these 4 universities are involved in this research. So that will be a good platform for all of you to get involved with those universities. It's not individual, it's a university, it's a full one set of organization is involved. BHU has started something called GYAN. Sorry, Ashley, you want to say something? You're mute.
No, you continue, please.
Okay. So BHU has started, there are 5 organizations in India where Government of India has given them what do you call? They are the preferred university, rather I can say, from where you can do a sort of a research, you can do this type of program, include people from India. The Government of India can give you up to $12,000 equivalent of money. You can come down to India, they will look after your boarding, lodging and everything. You can do this research, you can do a joint maybe I don't know, means sign a MOU of exchange of program, carry out the research, exchange informations, exchange of other things. Means most of the guys here, either they are the descendants of the people who actually came from those areas. I don't know, I'm the only one, or maybe there are a few more like me who are not the descendants but came from that area and has got interest into this. So thank you everybody who is carrying out this research, and thank you Dr. Mahabir sending me invitation every week for joining this forum. And I love to join with you guys, and please contact me if you want. I can get you contacted with those universities, what we are doing, how we are doing. As far as legal thing is concerned, this is my personal view. Before we bring it to UN, which most of the countries are now not giving big value of UN and UN platform, in this type of scenario, it is our thing. It is us who will have to bring it forward in front of the society. In our research, it is not only a research. We wanted to make some documentaries and some movies on those people who has achieved great things. Means they are the descendants of those indentured labor. So lots of things are there in the pipeline. Once you all will have a sort of a meeting, maybe next time I'll ask the other directors to join the meeting. That will be a fruitful for all of us, and it will be good for all of us to work together and bring this forward. I can assure you guys that the government of India is there to work with us. They are working. We have got a funding of 150,000 US dollars for these people to visit to these places. Two of them will be coming to London sometime in the month of June. Dr. Sadanandji, I plan to bring them to Netherlands because I'm based in London, and lots of things are available here in archive. So they are doing a research in India. They have appointed 3 postdoctorate guys who are just doing a research on this this indentured labor. They are going to collect information from archive in Calcutta, from archive in New Delhi. They are physically visiting those places where all these indentured laborers have migrated. And Trinidad and Tobago, the sitting prime minister, there is one director. He is from the same village from where he has come from. So there are lots of things we can do it together. So this is my first meeting. This is sort of introductory sort of a thing, and I would love to work with everybody and take it forward rather than saying that we have a restriction, we can't do this, we can't do that. I think we can do a lot of things if we all work together. I've seen the Mauritius is doing lots of things. I met a couple of professors in Guyana and Trinidad. They are visiting Mauritius because Mauritius is putting a lot of effort providing funding, paying for their airfares and boarding, lodging and everything. So lots of things are already happening. And these 4 universities, I'm not alone here. There are 4 Indian universities who would love to sign MOU, who would love to join with hands with you, who would love to work with you. So thank you very much and for giving me time, Salima. And I look forward to working with you guys in near future. Thank you.
Well, I have to say, Captain Prakash, you're quite an inspiration this afternoon. I want to thank you very much for taking the opportunity to, number one, join us, and number 2, sharing all that information. I would love to hear what you know about the Indian indentures based on the fact that you came from Chapra.
See, as far as my knowledge and things are concerned, means yes, I'm trying to find out the things how it actually originated, why the people migrated, why the people from that particular area. India is a very big country. People migrate from the southern part of India as well, who went to South Africa and today's Malaysia. But my focus is more towards those people, the Bhojpuri speaking belt from to Awadhi speaking belt who migrated to all these countries. So I'm focusing on that area. And although, as I said, I visited these 2 countries, met lots of people, took their interview, tried to talk to lots of local people. I had a mixed feeling when I was there. Lots of people, they don't bother. They're happy in today's time. They don't want to talk about the past. They have no interest whatsoever. I wanted to take their bite because means that was a part of my research to go and present everything. But it is a mixed thing, and this research, which we have got it from ICSSR, Indian Council of Social Research and Science, that is for 4 years. Which started July last year, but because of all the other formalities and everything, which finished in December this year. So they have got the funding. We have got a big room in Banaras where anybody and everybody is welcome. As I said, GYAN is the thing I can share you all the presentation which I have on the GYAN. Anybody can apply through that. Government of India will take care of your boarding, lodging and everything. So lots of things are there which we are already doing. So my research started why they migrated, why from that particular area, why not from any other area. Even in Bihar, there are 4 or 5 different languages. Everybody doesn't speak Bhojpuri. I come from Chapra, so I speak Bhojpuri, and I've been to Mauritius while I was sailing on ships, but now I'm based in London. I don't go on ships. So that was my curiosity. Why people of that area? So slowly, bit by bit, when I'm going deeper into it, I'm getting lots of informations. Exploitation of a male or female when they went on board, or when they were selected from those villages, how those Arcatias or those middlemen, they used to bring them from those villages to those center Garden Reach in Calcutta, and how they were boarding those ships, and those ships, the immigration passes. Nowadays, like Modi ji has given a green card to everybody that, okay, if you show your Indian contact, or sorry, Indian contact, Indian connectivity, then you are eligible for OCI. So lots of people are contacting me to get those old immigration passes from those archives in India. Lots of people who boarded that ships from Calcutta, they did not reach to their destination. And most of the cases, they did not even disclose that how many people actually arrived. I mean, some places, especially in Fiji, they are quite, what do you call, they walk on the forefront of these things. They have the archival, they have most of the information available. They fight for this. Little bit people from Mauritius, they do it, but from Caribbean, compared to what government of India see or feel or get the info, compared to that side, I mean to say Mauritius and Fiji, Caribbean is a less involved, or how to say, means they are less involved into these things. Means, okay, when I spoke to the professors, they said, okay, we got all the information what we have in our country, and we know lots of things about what is happening, how it's happening, immigration passes, people migrated from there to America, and most of the people, well-to-do people, they moved to America. But we need to do lots of things. Even for the immigration passes, they are saying that, okay, means I know up to my grandfather, but I don't know my family tree. So can you help us out in getting those things from India? So those are the things like digitizing all these informations. That is one of the area that these universities are working on. And for OCI, that will be helpful for all these countries, not one or two. All these countries, I call all these countries as a Garmitia's country. And I'm in a process of forming a Garmitia Foundation here in London, where people from all these countries have migrated and they're living here. Means from Guyana, 200,000 plus people as per the embassy. Trinidad and Tobago, again, 150,000 plus. Means lots of people are here in London, where I'm living. So I'm trying to build up something here in front of, I've been living here for 23 years, so I'm a British citizen now. So I've got access to all the archives, all the things, whatever is here. And at the same time, I'm connected with India, my Bharat. So what I'm trying to tell you people, that don't be discouraged. Don't think that nothing can happen, nothing can be done. There are lots can be done, and all these universities, there are 4 universities, again I'm reiterating, there are 4 universities involved in this research, and just join hands with them. We can do lots of things together. Salima.
Thank you. Thank you very much for saying that. We will be in touch with you. We will have a conversation, and I'm seeing the chat lighting up. I know a few people would want to get in touch with you as well. As soon as we have a conversation, we will put it out there and share contact information. And those who are interested, I see Vinay is raising. Let's have a group. Vinay, we will talk, because you definitely need to follow up with this. Thank you very much, Mr. Prakash. I'm going to ask Dr. Shadanan, make your comment, please.
Very short. हम भी बिहारी है.
अरे जय श्री
हम
राम.
भी बिहारी है भाई. I am really from छपरा.
अरे बोलनी तो भोजपुरी में बात करी ना, अगर छपरा से बनी तो
वो लोग ना समझी, हम लोग भोजपुरी में बात करब तब.
अरे ठीक बात.
Sorry, but take contact with me, and I want to invite you to have your lecture on the Jawaharlal Nehru University in September.
Okay, sir. I'll be there.
Send me your contact, or I think.
Excellent. So he already has.
You are a gold mine.
Dr. Shadanan, Captain Prakash already has the call for papers and everything for JNU, yes?
Pardon?
Dr. Sadanand, means like how Salima and Dr. Mahabir is conducting this conference, we have started doing that. Means if you would like to become one of the speaker, I can propose your name. You can come and discuss with all those 4 universities, and mostly the students join from
Okay.
India. But what I'm trying to say that if we work together, then that will be beneficial for everybody.
But suno na, we have to be, हम लोग what are talking about crime against the humanity. The other thing we will talk, हम लोग बिहारी है ना? Okay, crime against the humanity. That is the topic today.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you. So let's hear from Fiji, Mr. Pravin Kumar. Dr. Pravin Kumar, go ahead, please. Nice to have you back.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. It is about 7:30 in the morning, so I'm just getting ready to go to work, but I'll talk. So Om Prakash, I listened to your commentary. One of the key reasons why the indentured laborers were taken from that belt of Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand and Bihar, and if you ever look at the map near Rapti River, that's one of the places in the world where you can grow summer crops and winter crops. And I've researched a lot on this. So the British and the French and the Dutch were very clever that if they took people from this area, they'd be able to work all year round. Secondly, when it comes to this indenture talk, which has been happening for a while, I've done a lot of research for the last 4 or 5 years. It was the plantation owners who owned small islands in Fiji and also large tracts of freehold land on the 2 main islands. So when you start researching, and I have actually headbutted for the last 4 years, it becomes very difficult when you try to contact people like Mel Gibson and Arnold Schwarzenegger who own private islands, where people were shot, not only the native Fijians, but also the Girmitias. Large number of Girmia women were raped. And I've been to some very remote places. And I was the first Fiji Indian last year to go to a plantation in Vanuatu after 100 years that a Fiji Indian went to research about Girmitias. And when I went there, you just cannot believe how the Girmitias survived with 98% humidity and natural tropical forest. But when it comes to funding, I have applied for funding through many institutions. I've put a funding application to Australian National University. And the irony is that the people who hold the positions to grant fund are the ones who actually hate Fiji Indians. So you will not get anywhere. So the power is held by some of these part European Fijians who are doctorate holders who hold the whole position of grants in Australian National University, in Auckland University, in Canterbury University, and other universities in Australia, New Zealand, USA, and Canada. So when you are a Fiji Indian trying to put your submissions for funding, it is put in the rubbish bin. And it's the first time I have heard that there are some universities and I've been in touch with Banaras Hindu University for a while. I mean, I would be very keen to get some funding. And I'm actually trying to get funding because I want to do a documentary on Rambi Island, where the first Fiji Indians who came in 1879 were taken to an island where they planted about 250,000 coconut palms. And it was for Captain John Hill. But the island was later sold off to Lever Brothers, which is now called Unilever. And it is the most exploitative company in the world. But nothing is written. And when I write to Lever Brothers, and I've applied and I've written to them, I think 3-4 times that I'm doing research on this subject, can they provide me some information? You don't receive any replies from these people. It is just put in a deleted bin. So that is the harsh reality when you are trying to do things genuinely. And I have spent about $30,000 Australian dollars of my own money. And this has led to a lot of financial constraint upon my family. And actually, it is now leading to a separation between me and my wife. It has come to that extent because she has told me, if you want to continue this, then I don't want to be part of your life. And this is the harsh reality when you try to do something for the community, but no one is backing you. We have some very rich Indian businessmen in Australia, in New Zealand, in USA, in Canada, and even in Fiji, who can throw $1 million, but they will not give a single penny to research like this. So that is the harsh reality when you try to do things genuinely. I mean, I'm trying to save up some money to go into Fiji next August. It is going to cost me about 20,000 Australian dollars. But I do it because it is my personal interest. So that's where I leave it.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that your personal situation is at this position at which it is at.
Yeah, it is very hard.
Yeah. But if your passion is taking you to a place where you are putting it all out, finances and everything, and you are getting some kind of satisfaction from doing so.
Yeah, I am. If you look at my YouTube, Praveen Kumar Girmit, I think I've got about 23 videos, and some of the presentations I do on Facebook, I get about 100,000 audience. I just did a recent one on Holi celebration in Fiji in both Hindi and English, and it has gone to about 100 share groups on Facebook in Hindi
That's excellent.
and also in English. And I've had phone calls from India where they are trying to put it live on radio and TV next week and following Holi. And I'm probably, if I come back from work early, I'll do a presentation on certain areas of Fiji where the rubber plantations were set up, and there's been no research done. So I'm trying to contact the fourth, fifth generation people whose ancestors would have lived in these two places, where no Fiji Indian families actually now live. And I didn't have time to go last year, but that area is now covered in dense forest. And if you go to those areas, you'll probably be robbed or a knife put to you by the ethnic Fijians because it is now all drug country. Marijuana and cocaine and meth and etc. So, if I go there alone, I can't go alone. I'll have to hire a Fijian person who speaks Fijian fluently and English fluently because I can't speak Fijian. So when I go to these areas, I always have to hire a coordinator who can speak Fijian fluently. And they speak very little English. And when they see a Fiji Indian coming to their village the first time ever to do a research, they become very, very not hesitant, but also very aggressive. And it has happened to me. People now tell me, Praveen, if you go next time, you might not even come back alive. You'll probably be robbed. Or, someone will put a cane knife through your neck and they'll dump your body in the in the jungle, and that will be the end of you. But I go with my belief in God, and I go everywhere. And people ask me, how do you dare to go to those places? I said, I just go, mate. I have God on my side, and nothing will happen to me. And I've done
Yeah.
this for the last 4 or 5 years now.
In the same way that our indentured foreparents left India and they came to parts unknown, completely unknown, right?
Yeah, I'll probably send you some photos of where I went last year. You'll be surprised where I went. You will
Yeah,
not
please
believe how the
do.
Gilmeters survived. But the lucky thing was where I went last year, they used to have a lot of hot springs. So the advantage for the Gilmeters was that in the evening they could have a hot bath or hot shower, whatever you may call. But because of the environmental destruction over the last 140 years, springs exist except for maybe a couple, which I didn't have time to go because you have to walk about 15, 20 kilometers in dense jungle, and which I don't think so. I have the energy these days to do.
I hear you. Well, thank you
Okay,
very much
then.
for
Thanks a lot.
sharing.
We'll catch later. Mhm.
Yeah. And you've just opened up other areas that we need to research and we need to continue the conversations.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much.
Before you continue, a lot of people are asking for Om Prakash's contact. If you can type it in the chat, please.
Yes,
I have
yes.
already given my contact details in the chat.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Ken, what would you like to say?
One thing that helps these kinds of cases is a petition. If you can get people to sign a petition with your position, and in this case, if we imagine how many descendants of indentured people are there globally, and today you can circulate a petition by using a website. So in other words, if you get the information out, people can just go into the website and say, yes, I sign up to this petition. So if you have millions of names on a petition, you're going to get more weight when you start to file your complaint against the crime. So I think that's something that perhaps this group could do, is start a petition and get
Thank you.
millions of signatories to the petition.
Thank you. Dr. Shadanan, you had started a petition. What was that for?
80 persons within 6 months, and I've paid a lot of money. There is no
So,
response, sir, and there are a lot of websites. There are a lot of websites for lineage searching, but they are cheaters. They are cheaters. They are cheating you. These are archivists. They are cheating us now. We
So
have.
Baba, maybe we can help you share this petition if it's still valid.
Pardon?
We can help you share the petition if you still have it.
I see it.
Maybe if you post it on social media,
Yes.
you'll get a lot of
Yes.
interest.
I will share two things. The file we have prepared for the lawyer and advocate in Delhi, so you can see what we have already in documents. But it's all is social science. This we have to put in the framework of legal, and that is what Dr. Prahlad Singh is telling us. And that's, I'm inviting at least 3 or 4 persons in this group come together. Kumar Mahabir registered you, and online we can do a lot of things, sir. We are working separated. We are what Onkar is doing, Om Prakash, just the same we are doing with the gametology. But we are not working. That is not go this rail, but not focusing. This platform, I think this platform ICC is very important. Let us take benefits of this, and let us work for our descendants, respecting our ancestors. हम लोग मर जाब तो क्या हुई प्रहलाद सिंह, भोजपुरी में बात करें हम. Our language, the British has burned. A lot of you cannot speak Bhojpuri of Audi. They have destroyed. They have to repair. They have to give you the chance to make curriculum. What do you think, sir? Everyone is doing yes, 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 but come together, हाथ मार के काम करो.
Baba, I'm hearing something in your voice that we need to address. And I'm going to ask Dr. Albert Prasad now. I think his hand just went up at the appropriate time. I'm going to ask Dr. Albert Prasad to make a comment on what he's raising in terms of dark trauma. Dr. Prasad, please go ahead.
Can you unmute him? I'm not seeing him in the dashboard.
Dr. Albert Prasad?
Yeah, you seen him? Can you unmute him?
Just a second.
I asked him to unmute.
Okay. But you had something to say, Navin? Meanwhile?
I'll wait till the end if once no one else.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We're hearing you now.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for this interesting thing. Just as a bysign, I mean, the talk about petitions and all that is good, but I do think we need to get to the political leaders. There are many leaders who have indentured backgrounds and things like that, and they need to step up and do something. People like Ali and Prasad in Trinidad and elsewhere, because they're at the forum where the British government is at. Okay, so my name is Albert Prasad. I'm slightly different. My background is in psychiatry. I'm in London as well. I'm at the Institute of Psychiatry, and in Bern in Switzerland as well. One of the studies we're trying to undertake is around dark trauma. We live in a world that's full of turbulence at the moment, and lots of the world is caught up in various aspects of trauma, whether it's Ukraine or what's happening in what's happening in Venezuela and the surrounding areas, Trinidad and Guyana, and what's happening now in the Far East. From a psychiatric point of view, from a mental health point of view, trauma became to the forefront around 1959, when it was first recognized as a diagnostic issue. And we've dealt with a lot of PTSD and ongoing complex trauma. For example, those who live in Gaza or Kashmir, the trauma is ongoing. But one of the things we were interested in is dark trauma, trauma that has happened, that may have been passed down 2 generations, that doesn't always affect our lives in an everyday way, but there may be events or things that happens that can trigger trauma-like behavior, symptoms, and feelings. And we come from a culture where storytelling is part of that. Our parents tells a story, our grandparents tells a story, what it was like, and our great-grandparents told a story. And we do believe that those storytelling and reading of history or what historians have written has somehow affected a particular group of people around the world, which includes the indentured, us lot. That something happens in our life that can trigger something. And one of the examples I tend to give is that, back in the 60s, there was a lot of race riots in the Caribbean, particularly Trinidad and Guyana. And people responded to that differently compared to other countries. It sort of brought about a lot of sadness. And I think a lot of that is born from the stories that's been passed on. We begin to feel in a particular way. One of the areas I'm particularly interested in is suicide amongst indentured people. Suicide rates in Fiji, Mauritius, Trinidad, and Guyana are high compared to the rest of the world and compared to other places where there are other South Asians, like people from India who go directly to Canada and America, and those who come to England. We have 2 million Indians from India who live in the UK. And we do believe that there could be a much deeper subconscious explanation as to what goes on in the human mind that drives someone through the phases of depression and despair to die from suicide. And so our study is very much trying to find out a bit more and put together a conceptual paper on what is dark trauma. As I said, there are many types of trauma that's been described. We've just had a paper published on trauma in Gaza. Now, trauma amongst the indentured has not been tackled. Trauma involving histories of the past has not been tackled. I will put it to my Indian colleagues who are here. Trauma associated with Indians that's linked to colonization. The 3 million who died in the famine in Bengal is another example. And we just thought that we need to explore and get deeper into that finding out a bit more about dark trauma might help us understanding a bit about why we think a particular way, why we behave a particular way, and to recognize that this condition exists. So my appeal to any one of you, if you want to come on board, I'll be interested in the historians in this group, because from a psychiatric medical point of view, nothing much has been written in this area. But there's a lot written in the historical area. People who have studied colonization, people who have studied indenturedness, and those histories. So I'm interested in those of you who don't come from mental health psychiatric background, any lights you can shed that can help us to put this together. I'll be grateful. I'll put my details up if you're interested. I spoke to this group before on mental health. So that's what I have to say, Shamila.
Shalima. Shalima, are you there? Oh, she disappeared?
Looked like she got bumped off.
Oh my. Okay. So we have let's see, anybody with a comment?
Can we recruit 5 volunteers for the crime against the humanity, sir?
Can we what? Sorry?
Can we recruit the
Yeah.
task group?
So put your there you can send me details if you want to do what? What, Baba?
Make a task force for working
A
on the
task force.
framework of
Yeah.
crime against the humanity.
Yeah, yeah,
There are a lot of expertise. Oh my
Yeah.
God. It
Yeah.
is gold mine.
Would you like to write a paper and explain what you mean, and maybe we can get it published, and then that has a wider constituency for people to read it?
Okay.
Because there are many other indentured who don't come to this group who can
But
contribute to
can
the
you
future.
register your name persons and then we can work this together in a WhatsApp group that works in this day better?
Yeah, you have, can you type your, Dr. Prasad, can you type your email and WhatsApp in
Yeah,
the chat?
I've just put it up. It's just below Om
You
Prakash.
just, yes.
Yes. So we'll be able to contact you. Shalima messaged me and she said she had an electrical blackout, but she's trying to connect.
Oh, okay.
And this one is trying to reconnect. Okay. So let's see. Okay, Ashley, you want to make any comment or so?
Right. So, as Professor just said, Shalima is experiencing technical difficulties. So therefore, I will be closing off today in her place. With regards to, I was putting my last 2 cents before we leave and I close. In regards to going along and pushing forward with this situation, with this issue, I think the best way in doing this, because I know a lot of you were comparing it to enslavement, and I think that is not the best approach, because indentureship, or in some ways, was similar to enslavement, but with indentureship, we have to look at the push and pull factors that were involved with India and the Caribbean at the time, and what was happening at that time. So there were so many different factors that we need to understand when approaching this situation. And so when we go towards this situation, we need to understand how we're going to approach these people before we go ahead and do it. And I think that's my little 2 cents, because there were so many different things taking place at the time, from like I said, the push and pull factors and the contract that was involved. So, there's, without 3 speakers today, we got so many information. So with that information, we compile something, and then we bring it towards the higher ups, who is going to see about pushing this issue and considering this as a crime against humanity. So
Actually, Shalima asked me here that if Navin has anything to say, and then you'll close. Navin?
yes.
Yes. Yeah. So it's similar to what Ashley was just saying about not comparing it to slavery. But I mean, I think we have to look at consent. One, was it genuine or legally valid? I think a lot of it happened under false pretense.
Yeah,
Recruitment
deception.
promised things like good wages, housing,
Yeah.
return passage. Those things, some of those things were not honored. Right?
Right.
Information asymmetry. Many laborers were illiterate. They were unfamiliar with contracts. It was written in a foreign language. Some of them didn't even know what they were signing. Right? For some of them, it wasn't really much alternative. They were in extreme poverty, famine. They were suffering from caste oppression, colonial taxes, and some of them it was just a forced choice, right? And then there was an inability to withdraw. Once deployed, they could not freely leave without punishment. So that's another key factor. And I think we need to demonstrate the elements of crimes against humanity. Is why widespread or systematic abuse. Mentorship systems were state regulated. It applied across multiple colonies. It was enforced over decades. It was targeted at specific ethnic groups, right? And these acts qualified as crimes: forced labor, physical punishment, whipping, sexual violence against women, denial of medical care, arbitrary detention, family separation, starvation wages. All these things qualify as crimes.
Yeah.
So
Very good point.
if we have to reframe indentureship as a form of slavery, because it was just very similar. They were a restricted movement. There were penal sanctions if they breach contract. There was ownership-like control over the labor, right? Transfer of resale of the labor, just like slaves, right? And some of these things mandatory to re-indenture, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think we have some different ways to approach this for us to
Yeah.
to
Very
be
good
able
point.
to prove
Very
the
good point.
point.
Yeah. 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 Okay, very good point. So, Lenroy, be short, please, because we want to close. It's 5 o'clock now. Yeah, Lenroy, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying that having had this discussion, we should have a way forward, right? And Professor Shadanan, I think we should get together and form a group, encourage everyone to form a group, and
So
then decide
yes,
how we go forward, right?
I will send your contact to him, right? I will do that soon after the program ends, which
Thank
will
you.
be now.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, Baba, you want to say something very short because it's time. It's 5 o'clock, past 5.
No, maybe we can call for the papers for the Jawaharlal Nehru University.
Yes, so I will circulate those call for papers. All right.
Okay, it is September 10, 11, and 12 is going.
A conference.
The domain is immigration and emigration, leaving Bharat and coming in a new country. In between, what happens?
Yeah. Okay, Ashley, you can close. Navin, you'll play the billboard at the end, please.
Sure.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, a very intriguing and conversational presentation today. And I think this has room for more conversations to take place. So thank you, all of you, for taking the time to attend. Thank you to Shalima for her great moderation today, as always. And thank you, everyone, for participating and being a part of today's conversation. As was said earlier, this public meeting is being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center. Feel free to contact the ICC to publish your books. Remember that we are asking you to kindly give us your suggestions. If you give a donation, your name will be placed on our poster and all promotional materials. Please contact Dr. Mahabir for details. Our topic next Sunday will be reimagining feminism after indentureship. And I think this will be another intriguing conversation, as I definitely have some pointers here as well. So thanks to our planning team led by Dr. Kumar Mahabir and Shalima Mohammed. Thanks to our IT and graphic consultants, Darrell Gransam and Navin Mangal. Please visit, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to see all our past recordings. I am Ashley Sinanan from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean saying goodbye. May God bless all of you. Dhanyavad.